Hey there everybody, welcome to another Friday video. Today is maintenance day and I figured I would bring you guys along with doing some maintenance on the 40 breeder, kind of give you guys an update because looking back it's been at least a month or two since I've even put this tank on video on the channel. So I think it's definitely time to bring you guys up to speed with it. And I also have to do a little bit of filter maintenance on this tank because it's been a few months since I've done that. So I figured I'd bring you guys along for that ride too. So hope you enjoy. So first things first, for those of you that are newer to my channel, this is my 40-gallon breeder Amazon themed Amazon biotope tank. It's probably less of a biotope at this point and more just kind of Amazon themed. If you go through a lot of my older videos, this tank has probably gone through the most amount of changes out of any of my tanks. For some reason, it's been one of those harder tanks for me to kind of decide on a scape or aesthetic to it. And like I said, it's just been through a lot of different changes. The fish choice has pretty much remained mostly the same. The Bolivian rams, the Amazon puffer by clown plecos, and farlowella catfish have pretty much been the standard in this tank for at least the last 3 years. The schooling fish have changed a little bit. Originally this tank started with a school of rummy-nosed tetras, and then I later added in some Von Rio flame tetras. I recently moved out the rummy-nosed tetras out of this tank and put them into my 29-gallon paludarium tank because I found that for some reason the puffer was attracted to the red on their head. No other fish did the puffer really kind of have an issue with. It was just the rummy-nose. So I decided to move them out of here for their safety and just to kind of let them live out the rest of their life in peace. So they're in that tank now. But the main schooling fish in this tank is now my school of red eye tetras. There are about 15, 16 of them in this tank. I don't remember for sure. And I've really enjoyed having them in here. They school pretty nicely and they don't really bother any of the other fish. The puffer gets along with them, the rams get along with them. So I think for the most part they are here to stay as well. For lighting in this tank, I am running the Fluval Planted 2.0 and it is a really strong light, which works out perfectly because I tend to put a good bit of tannins into this water. So the plants still get a good bit of light. The filtration is a Fluval 206 canister filter. For probably the last year, I've also been running a sponge filter in this tank, but I recently decided to go ahead and take that out of there, which really kind of opened up the tank a little bit more and kind of helped set the scape a little bit. So like I said, I decided to take that out. And then for heating, I'm using the Fluval E-Series heater. But that is pretty much it equipment-wise, update-wise. The Bolivian rams have kind of ramped down their breeding, and that's partially, I think, because for the summer months I tend to lower the heat in the aquarium a little bit and then raise it back up in the winter. Kind of gives them a little bit of a seasonal difference. But that is it, so let's move on to maintenance. As you can see in the top right corner there are some plants that have somehow become uprooted. I have a feeling that was probably the clown plecos were messing around in them. So I'll get those planted down, do a water change, and like I said earlier on, I have to do some filter cleaning in as well. So first thing I have to do today is clean out my spray bar. This is a DIY spray bar. I'll put the link in the description to how I made this. And you can see me pulling off these little white pieces off of the canister filter there. I will get a little bit more in depth into that later. And since it had been such a long time since I had really opened up the filter to clean all the components, I decided that I would go ahead and pull out the impeller, really clean that out, make sure nothing was blocking it up, get any of the built up gunk out of there, just to really get the filter running at peak efficiency. And somehow it never fails that there's a lot of snails or shrimp inside of the filter. So I always make sure to really get them out of there. Alright guys, so I said I would mention what those little white pieces I took off of my canister filter were, and essentially it's just paper towel. With my fluval canister filter, I've pretty much had issues with the O-ring. It happened with the old O-ring, it happens with brand new O-rings. I've put on silicone lubricant, and no matter what I did, there always was at least a drip of a leak coming out of it. So what I decided was that it did not have enough pressure being put against the O-ring to create a good seal. And maybe this is something Fluval's fixed, but at least with this canister that I purchased, I've always had an issue with it, and that was the only issue I've ever had with this filter. So essentially what I do is go ahead and put this on here to prep it. And so, let me see if I can demonstrate this. You can kind of see how much of a crack there still is there. And that's with it fully latched on and closed. You can see that I can actually move it a little bit further down. So, to fix that, I take a paper towel and I just tear it in half. And of course, since I'm doing this on camera now, I can't tear properly. Go figure. So, take that first half, fold it again, and essentially I'm just making a area here for the latches to press into and grab onto, and I stick that right down here where the canister latches onto. And so I just kind of press that into place a little bit. And then pushing down on it a little bit, press the latches onto it, and what it does is it forms onto the latching surface, and the latches actually latch onto there a little bit tighter. So once I do that, go ahead and close it. Make sure that's snapped in place. And then I do the same thing for the other side. And now if you look, there is much less of a gap there. And that gives me a nice tight seal. And that way I don't have the issues I was having before of water seeping out of the sides, which you can see the old seep marks there. Alright, and this is a perfect example of why I clean my filter and restart it before I change the water in the tank. Because as you can see, there's a bunch of debris that got spit out once the filter reprimed and restarted itself. And every other water change, I will go through the tank and do a little bit of a substrate siphon, mainly where there's no plants, just to get any extra debris from the breaking down botanicals in the tank, which also kind of gives the tank a little bit of a refresher, almost like a rainy day in the Amazon. Alright everybody, that is it for today's video. Hope you enjoyed. Hit that like button, subscribe, and I will see you next Friday.